Kieran Monroe had no idea the woman dragging two oversized suitcases across the airport curbside pickup would change his life forever. His arms were full, one hand holding a pink unicorn backpack, the other gripping his 5-year-old daughter's tiny hand, but when the second suitcase tipped sideways and the woman muttered something under her breath, he instinctively stepped forward. "You need a hand?" he asked, adjusting the backpack strap on his shoulder. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp, scanning the crowded terminal for any sign of danger. Being a single dad did that to a man, made him alert, protective, wired for anything. The woman looked up. Her sunglasses slid down the bridge of her nose, revealing tired, piercing green eyes. "Honestly? Yeah, that'd be amazing." He bent down, hoisted the suitcase like it was nothing, and nodded toward the curb. "Where's your ride?" She laughed, almost embarrassed. "Apparently circling. I think they forgot what terminal I was at." Kieran chuckled. "Classic." Her eyes flicked down to the little girl beside him, who was now chewing on a gummy worm and staring up at her. "And who's this?" "This," Kieran said, "is Daisy. My boss and my best friend, depending on the day." Daisy gave a tiny wave, then whispered, "She's really pretty, Daddy." Heat rushed to Kieran's ears. "Daisy, come on." The woman smiled genuinely for the first time, brushing her hair behind her ear. "I'm Kaia Jensen. Kieran Monroe." He offered his hand, shifting the suitcase to his other side. She shook it, firm grip, clean nails, not a drop of sweat despite the New York heat. "Definitely not a local." "You visiting?" he asked casually. She hesitated. "Something like that." Before he could press further, a sleek black SUV pulled up and a man in a suit jumped out, opening the door like she was royalty. Kaia's whole posture shifted. Her back straightened, the smile softened into something more reserved. "Thanks again," she said quickly, taking the suitcase from him, though it clearly wasn't easy for her. "Not a problem," he said, watching as the suited man loaded her bags. "Have a good trip." Kaia hesitated at the door. "I'll see you around, Kieran." But he just nodded. No way he'd see her again. Except he did. 3 days later. She walked into the community center where Kieran taught after-school art classes, wearing jeans and a simple white tee, but he recognized her instantly. Her hair was pulled up today, and she had no makeup on. But those eyes? Same ones. "You again," he said, stepping away from the table where kids were finger painting. Kaia blinked like she hadn't expected to see him either. "You work here?" He nodded, wiping blue paint off his hand with a paper towel. "Volunteer. Tuesdays and Thursdays." Daisy's in the back building a glitter fortress. Kaia looked around, her expression unreadable. "I'm donating to the center. Touring it today." "Oh," he said. "Nice. They need it." She tilted her head. "You're not gonna ask why someone like me would donate to a place like this?" Kieran shrugged. "You helped Daisy get glue out of her hair the other day. That's enough for me." Kaia laughed, an actual laugh this time, and something in her shoulders loosened. "You're not what I expected." He raised a brow. "Is that a compliment or an insult?" "Honestly," she said, echoing their first meeting. "Both." They didn't plan to see each other again, but fate or maybe Daisy had other ideas. 1 week later, Kieran was picking up cupcakes for Daisy's birthday when he saw Kaia again. She was in line ahead of him, arguing politely with the cashier about the wrong order. A dozen red velvet cupcakes instead of chocolate. When she turned and saw him, her face lit up. "You again." "Starting to think you're following me." She laughed. "You wish." Before he could answer, Daisy came bounding up beside him, frosting all over her face. "Daddy." "Kaia's here." Kaia bent down with a grin. "Birthday girl." "Are you eating all the cupcakes before the party even starts?" "Maybe," Daisy whispered. Kieran glanced at Kaia. "You want to come? It's just a few kids at the park. No pressure." Kaia blinked. You're inviting me to a 5-year-old's birthday party? I mean, you're already holding a dozen cupcakes. She looked down. Fair point. At the park, Kaia didn't just show up, she played pirate with the kids, helped a toddler down a slide, and even wore a paper crown Daisy gave her. Kieran couldn't stop watching her. She was warm, funny, and completely unexpected. Later, while Daisy was off opening presents with her friends, Kieran and Kaia stood by the picnic table, watching her. "You're great with her," he said. Kaia smiled. "I like kids. Didn't think I would. But they don't care who you are. They just want honesty." He nodded slowly, something shifting in his chest. "What do you do, Kaia?" "For work." There was a long pause. Then, with a soft laugh, she said, "I run a company. Jensen Holdings." He blinked. "Wait, Jensen Holdings? Like the investment firm with the skyscraper downtown?" "Guilty. You're the CEO?" "Since I was 28. Kieran stared at her, stunned. Wow. That's not what I expected." She looked up at him, teasing. "Is that a compliment or an insult?" He grinned. "Both." They didn't kiss that day. But something shifted between them, something unspoken. And as Kaia helped him pack up the leftover streamers and Daisy's cake, Kieran realized he hadn't felt this light in years. When Kaia climbed into her sleek black car and waved goodbye, Daisy tugged on Kieran's sleeve. "Daddy," she said. "Yeah, baby?" "I think Kaia's magic." He looked at the spot where her car had disappeared. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I think she is." Kaia stepped out of the elevator and into the 27th floor of Jensen Holdings, the hum of conversation and clacking keyboards barely registering as she walked toward her office. Her assistant, Lila, rose from her desk to follow, a tablet in hand and a worried line between her brows. "You canceled the quarterly strategy meeting," Lila said as they entered Kaia's glass-walled office, and moved the investor call. "That's not like you." Kaia tossed her blazer onto the leather couch and walked to the window, her gaze drifting toward the skyline. "I needed space." Lila gave a cautious nod. "You've never taken space before." "I know." Kaia turned, jaw tight. "But I have to stop running this company, like it's the only thing I am." Lila blinked, clearly unsure how to respond. Kaia didn't blame her. She'd built her life around control-tight schedules, strategic acquisitions, and never letting anything get close. But lately, one man and his glitter-crazed daughter were unraveling that armor thread by thread. Kaia dismissed Lila with a promise to reschedule the meetings. Once alone, she sat behind her desk, scrolling through emails she couldn't focus on. Her mind kept drifting back to the park, to the way Daisy had clung to her like they'd known each other forever, to the quiet steadiness in Kieran's eyes, the kind that made her want to stay in one place for once. She dragged her hands through her hair and exhaled. It wasn't supposed to feel like this, so fast, so consuming, so utterly dangerous. A soft knock pulled her from the spiral. Lila poked her head in, holding a white envelope. "Courier just dropped this off. No return address." Kaia waved her in, took the envelope, and opened it. Inside was a simple invitation printed on thick cream paper. "Jackson Heights Community Center, Family Movie Night Fundraiser. Friday at 6. All are welcome." There was no signature, but there didn't need to be. Only one man she knew would send this, without asking. She ran her thumb along the edge of the card and glanced toward her calendar. Friday was supposed to be dinner with the board. She closed the calendar app with one quick swipe. Friday came, and the first thing Kaia noticed as she stepped into the community center was the scent of popcorn and the laughter of kids echoing through the gymnasium. The second thing was Kieran, standing by a folding table, setting up a projector with one hand and balancing a tray of juice boxes in the other. He didn't spot her right away, too focused on detangling a stubborn cable. She took a moment to watch him, struck by how effortlessly he moved through the chaos, unshaken, grounded, like he belonged in every room he entered. Daisy was sitting cross-legged with a group of kids, passing out glow bracelets. When she saw Kaia, she leapt up and ran over, nearly tripping over her sparkly sneakers. "You came?" Kaia crouched down. "I wouldn't miss it." Daisy wrapped her arms around Kaia's neck and squeezed tight. "I saved you a bracelet." Kieran finally looked up, his eyes catching hers across the room. Something flickered in his face, surprise, maybe relief, but he didn't say anything until she reached him. "Didn't think you'd actually show," he said, handing over a small flashlight. "You're officially on flashlight duty. If the power goes out, we're counting on you." "High stakes," she said dryly. He grinned. "Welcome to Jackson Heights." She helped him finish setting up the projector, and once the movie started, an animated film involving dragons and far too many fart jokes, they sat on the edge of the gym near the exit, where the noise was a little quieter. Daisy had fallen asleep on a beanbag, drooling gently on her paper plate. Kieran leaned back against the wall, his shoulder brushing hers. "So, what made you come tonight?" Kaia looked down at her hands. "I needed to see something real." He studied her for a long moment. "You ever get tired of it? The meetings, the suits, the boardrooms?" "More than I ever admit," she said. "Then why do it?" "My father started the company. He died when I was 22. I was the only one left to run it." "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Kaia nodded, swallowing the sudden tightness in her throat. "I always thought if I worked hard enough, kept everything in line, I wouldn't feel the holes." Kieran was silent for a while, then said, "You don't have to be strong all the time, you know." She looked at him, surprised. "That's rich coming from you." He gave a soft laugh. "Touché." They sat in companionable silence until the movie credits rolled and parents began collecting their kids. Kaia helped stack chairs and passed out leftover popcorn bags. When the last child left, Kieran walked her to her car, Daisy asleep in his arms. As Kaia unlocked her door, she hesitated. "I'm not good at this." "Good at what?" he asked. "This." She gestured vaguely between them, letting people in. Kieran adjusted Daisy's weight slightly and looked her in the eye. "I'm not asking for anything. You're the first person who hasn't. I don't need you to impress me, Kaia. I just need you to be here." She opened her car door, but before getting in, she touched his forearm lightly. "Next time, let me bring the cupcakes." He watched her drive away, heart pounding in a way he hadn't felt since before Daisy was born. The next week, Kaia invited him and Daisy to a garden rooftop brunch hosted by a friend of hers, an architect renovating a historic theater downtown. Kieran hesitated at first, unsure about entering her world. But Daisy was excited, and Kaia had promised there would be waffles shaped like animals. They arrived to find a spread of food that looked like it belonged in a magazine: fresh fruit towers, golden croissants, and delicate pastries dusted with edible flowers. Daisy's eyes nearly popped out of her head. Kaia wore a soft blue blouse and had her hair tied back in a low twist. She greeted them with a bright smile and bent to Daisy's level. "There's a pancake bar," she whispered like it was a secret. Daisy bolted in that direction. Kieran gave her an amused look. "You're spoiling her." "She deserves it," Kaia said. "You both do." They ate under white umbrellas while a string quartet played on a corner of the terrace. Kaia introduced Kieran to her friends, none of whom batted an eye at his jeans or Daisy's syrup-stained dress. If anything, they seemed charmed. After the meal, Kaia led him to a quiet corner near the balcony, offering him a glass of champagne. "Why did you really bring me here?" he asked. "Because I wanted you to see that I'm not just a title," she said. "This world isn't everything to me. I never thought it was. I wanted you to know you fit in it." Kieran watched her for a long moment. "Doi." She took a step closer. More than anyone ever has. He didn't kiss her. Not yet. But the space between them felt charged, like something inevitable was building. That evening, as he tucked Daisy into bed, She looked at him sleepily and asked, "Is Kaia gonna be my mommy now?" Kieran's heart caught in his throat. "Why do you ask that?" "'Cause when you look at her, your eyes get soft like when you look at me." He brushed a curl from her cheek. "I don't know yet, Bug. But maybe." Daisy nodded. "I hope so." He sat there long after she fell asleep, Kaia's words echoing in his mind. "You fit." And for the first time in years, he wondered if maybe, just maybe, he could believe it. It started with a phone call. Kaia had been in her office reviewing a property acquisition proposal when Lila knocked twice, quick and sharp, and pushed the door open with a phone in her hand. "You told me to interrupt if it was important." Lila held out the phone. "It's the Jackson Heights Community Center." "Something about an emergency?" Kaia stood without a word, took the call, and within the hour, she was in a cab headed downtown. When she arrived, the gymnasium lights were half out, and the familiar smell of old wood floors and tempera paint filled the air. A man in a maintenance uniform met her at the entrance, rubbing the back of his neck. "The HVAC's finally given out," he said. "It's been patched so many times. We were lucky it lasted the summer. Without heat, we'll have to close for the season." Kaia stared up at the ceiling, her arms folded as she took in the rusted vents and the aging infrastructure. "How much?" "Estimates around 60 grand. But the board doesn't have it. We can apply for a grant, but that'll take months. And the kids? They'll be stuck outside or shuffled around. Might lose some of the staff if we can't keep the center open full-time." Kaia didn't hesitate. "Get me the contractor's information. I'll cover it." The man blinked. "You don't have to, I know I don't," she said. "But I want to." That night, Kaia showed up at Kieran's apartment unannounced. She'd never been before, and she didn't call ahead. She just stood outside his door holding a bag of groceries and something else she hadn't carried in a long time. Nerves. When he opened the door, holding a dish towel in one hand and a spatula in the other, he looked surprised but not unhappy. "Is this a bad time?" she asked, lifting the bag. He stepped aside. "Only if you hate burnt pancakes and finger-painted walls." Kaia stepped in and immediately caught sight of Daisy, kneeling on the living room floor with a plastic tiara on her head, coloring a cardboard box that had been transformed into a castle jail. She waved when she saw Kaia. "I'm making a dungeon for my plushies." Kaia grinned. "Well, I brought snacks for the prisoners." Kieran took the bag and set it on the kitchen counter. "What's the occasion?" She leaned against the wall, watching him move around the small space. "The community center's heat died. I covered the repairs." He paused. "Kaia, I didn't do it for you. Or even for Daisy. I did it because it matters." He closed the fridge slowly and turned to face her. "You always do that." "What? Throw money at things to keep them from falling apart?" Her eyes narrowed. "Do you see a problem with that?" "I see a woman who's used to fixing things with her wallet. But sometimes, people don't want to be fixed." She bristled. "Is that what you think I'm trying to do? Fix you?" "No," he said carefully. "But I think you're scared of what happens when you can't control everything." Kaia opened her mouth, then closed it again. She wasn't used to being read so quickly or so accurately. "I don't do things halfway," she said finally. "I know." He took a step closer. "But I'm not a project. And neither is Daisy." She met his gaze, her voice softer now. "I didn't mean it like that." "I know you didn't." He hesitated, then added, "I grew up with people who liked to give things so they wouldn't have to feel things. You're not like them. But I need to know that if you're going to be in our lives, you're here for more than just the easy parts." Kaia's throat tightened. "This isn't easy for me." "I'm not asking for perfect," he said. "Just real." She took a slow breath, then nodded. "Okay." Later, after Daisy was asleep and the apartment had quieted, they sat together on the fire escape with mugs of tea, the city buzzing below them. "I used to think love was something you earned," Kaia said quietly. That if you built enough, gave enough, worked hard enough, someone would finally choose you. Kieran looked at her, his voice low. And now, I'm starting to think, maybe it's not about being chosen. Maybe it's about choosing. He reached over and gently took her hand. Then choose this. She didn't answer right away, but she didn't pull her hand away either. The next few weeks passed in a blur of small moments. Kieran came to one of Kaia's charity galas, wearing the only suit he owned. She introduced him to investors and board members without hesitation. He watched her move through the crowd, poised and magnetic, and when someone asked how they met, she simply said, "He carried my luggage. I never gave it back." Daisy began calling her Kai, and Kaia didn't correct it. They carved pumpkins together on a chilly Saturday, Kaia wearing one of Kieran's oversized hoodies while Daisy stuck googly eyes on everything. They went ice skating, where Kaia fell twice and swore never to do it again until Daisy asked to go the next weekend. But not everything was smooth. Kieran received a letter from Daisy's school about switching her to a private academy uptown. Kaia had sent the application without telling him. "You had no right," he said, holding the letter with tight fingers. "I was trying to help. You were trying to control." Kaia's voice rose. "Is it so wrong to want her to have more? You didn't ask me. You didn't even talk to her. I didn't think I needed to. That's the problem." They didn't speak for 3 days. On the 4th, Kaia showed up at the center with 2 envelopes. One was an apology letter addressed to Daisy, written in colorful markers. The other was for Kieran. Inside was a note that read, "Tell me how to be a part of this, not the one who decides it." He found her waiting in the gym, sitting on a folded mat, elbows on her knees. "I'm not used to asking," she said when he approached. "But I want to learn." He sat beside her. "Then let's start there." That night, he kissed her for the first time. It wasn't dramatic or overly planned. They were walking back to her car after dinner at a neighborhood restaurant where Daisy had fallen asleep midway through her spaghetti. Kieran had carried her, and Kaia had unlocked the car. When he turned to say goodbye, she leaned in unsure at first, but he met her halfway. It was quiet. Warm. Like coming home. Neither of them spoke for a long moment after. Then Kaia brushed her fingers over his collar and whispered, "That felt real enough." He smiled, forehead resting against hers. "It's a start." And it was. The next morning, Kaia woke up in her penthouse, sunlight filtering in through the tall windows. She stared out at the city, her coffee untouched beside her, and realized that for the first time in years, she wasn't focused on what was next. She was thinking about what was already here, and that terrified her. Because falling in love with Kieran meant letting go of the version of herself she'd spent a lifetime building. It meant being vulnerable, being wrong, being seen. But it also meant finally being known. And Kaia Jensen was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, that was worth everything. Kaia stood in the narrow hallway of Kieran's apartment, her heels dangling from one hand, her other tucked into the pocket of her coat. The late autumn wind had followed her inside, but the warmth in her chest hadn't left since the moment he opened the door. She glanced past him toward the living room. Daisy was curled up on the couch with a blanket half tucked under her chin, a coloring book abandoned on the coffee table. "She fell asleep waiting for you," Kieran said quietly, stepping aside so Kaia could come in. "I didn't mean to be late." The board meeting went long. One of our directors decided to challenge the entire philanthropy budget. He took her coat and hung it behind the door. "Let me guess. You didn't let them win." "I didn't even let them breathe between objections." He gave a soft laugh, then nodded toward the kitchen. "I saved you some soup. It's not fancy, but it's edible." Kaia followed him in, watching as he lifted a lid off the pot on the stove. The scent of something tomato-based filled the air. "You cooked?" she asked, leaning against the counter. "I heated." Daisy picked the recipe. "She said you needed something cozy after a big grown-up day." Kaia's chest tightened. She took the bowl he handed her and sat at the small table, the one with a corner chipped from an old move. He poured her a glass of water and sat across from her, resting his chin on his hand. "You look tired," he said. "I am." She took a spoonful, then paused. "But not the kind of tired I used to be. This is different." "What kind?" "The kind that makes you feel like you've used your energy on something that matters." He studied her face for a moment, then leaned back in his chair. "I've been thinking about something." She set her spoon down slowly. "That sounds serious." He nodded. "I've been offered a full-time position at the center, director of youth programs. It's less money than what I make now, and I'd have to leave the building company I've been working with. But it's steadier, closer to Daisy's school. And it feels right." Kaia blinked. "That's amazing. Do you want to take it?" "I think I do. But I need to know something first." She tilted her head. "Where are we going, Kaia?" "You and me. Daisy's already halfway there. She talks about you like you're part of the family. But I need to know if this is real for you. Long-term real. Not just when it's convenient." Kaia stared at him. Her throat tightened again, but this time it wasn't from exhaustion. "I'm not good at this." "I'm not asking for perfect," he said. "I know," she whispered. "But I'm asking myself if I can be the kind of person who builds something that doesn't come with escape hatches." Kieran didn't flinch. "Can you?" "I think I already am." He reached across the table and took her hand. "Then say it." She hesitated, then held his gaze. "I love you." The words landed like a stone dropped into still water, simple, heavy, and rippling with impact. Kieran exhaled slowly, his grip tightening just slightly. "I love you too." She looked down, blinking hard. "I didn't realize how much I needed to say that." "You've been showing it," he said. "Now you're just catching up." By the end of the week, Kaia had made her decision. Not just about Kieran, but about her entire life. She sat at her desk overlooking the skyline, a resignation letter to the board half written in front of her. She wasn't stepping away from her company, not entirely. But she was restructuring, delegating, letting go of the reins she'd held much too tightly for too long. Lila walked in mid-morning with 2 coffee cups and one raised brow. "You're really doing it?" Kaia nodded. "There's more to life than quarterly projections." Lila set the coffee down. "You're in love." Kaia didn't deny it. Later that afternoon, she stood in the event hall of the old theater her firm had helped restore. The room had been transformed into a fundraiser gala for the community center. String lights looped between the vintage chandeliers. Music drifted from a baby grand piano in the corner. The guest list was a mix of Wall Street suits and local families, school teachers, and city officials. The worlds Kaia and Kieran came from blended, not forced. Kaia wore a navy dress, understated and elegant, her hair swept back with dainty pearl pins Daisy had chosen herself. She moved through the room with purpose, but none of the edge she used to carry like armor. This time, she wasn't proving anything. She was just present. Kieran arrived wearing a tailored charcoal blazer Kaia had picked up during a quiet Sunday afternoon walk through Soho. He didn't like to spend money on himself, but he'd worn it without complaint. Daisy held his hand, her dress a swirl of tulle and sparkle, her tiny shoes clicking on the marble floor. She spotted Kaia and broke into a run, arms flung wide. Kaia crouched just in time to catch her. "You look like a princess," Daisy whispered. "You're the one with the crown," Kaia said, adjusting the plastic tiara on her head. Kieran approached slower, more cautious in crowds like this. She stood as he reached her, smoothing his lapel. "You clean up well." "I try." They spent the first hour greeting guests, giving speeches, auctioning handmade art from the kids at the center. But Kaia had one more surprise. As the final bid closed and applause filled the room, she stepped up to the microphone. "I want to thank everyone for being here tonight," she said, voice steady. This center has become more than a project to me. It's become a place where something real began. And because of that, I've decided to make a permanent endowment to ensure its programs never face closure again. Gasps echoed across the room. Kieran's eyes widened, but she met his gaze without hesitation. This isn't just about giving back, she continued. It's about building forward. For the next generation. For the ones who need a place to feel safe, seen, and loved. She stepped away from the mic as the crowd erupted into applause. Kieran pulled her aside as cameras flashed and hands reached to shake hers. Kaia, he said quietly. You didn't have to, I wanted to. He looked at her for a long beat, then said something that made her heart catch. Come home with us tonight. She nodded. They left the gala early, slipping out the side door with Daisy asleep again in Kieran's arms. The city was quieter now, the streets slick with mist. When they arrived at Kieran's apartment, Kaia helped tuck Daisy into bed. She sat on the edge of the mattress, brushing a curl from the child's forehead. I want her to know I'm not going anywhere, she whispered. She already knows, Kieran said behind her. Later, they stood in the kitchen, the same place where she'd eaten soup weeks ago, and he wrapped his arms around her waist. I've been thinking, he said against her temple. About what? About how this started. You with your luggage and your sharp tongue. Me, with paint on my shirt and a kid who thinks glitter cures everything. She laughed softly. We were a mess. Still are. But now it's our mess. She turned to face him, her voice low. Let's make it official. He blinked. What? I don't mean tomorrow. Or next week. But soon. I want to do this with you for real. Marriage. Family. All of it. His breath caught. Are you proposing to me? I'm asking you to build a life with me. That counts, right? He kissed her before he answered. They held a small wedding in the spring. Nothing extravagant. Just close friends, family, and a 5-year-old flower girl who insisted on throwing glitter instead of petals. Kaia walked down the aisle barefoot, holding Daisy's hand. Kieran waited at the altar in the same charcoal blazer, eyes locked on hers. When they said their vows, there were no grand speeches. Just a promise to choose each other every day no matter what. After the ceremony, Kaia stood beneath the string lights of the reception tent, watching Daisy dance with a group of kids from the center. Kieran came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. You know what I was thinking, he said. What's that? If I hadn't offered to carry that suitcase. She smiled. I would have made you anyway. He laughed. Yeah, you would have. And they stood there, wrapped in each other, as the music played and the world moved on around them. Together. For good. Kaia watched the rain streak down the windows of the quiet bookstore, her fingers tracing the edge of her teacup as the city hummed beyond the glass. The wedding had been weeks ago, but the world hadn't slowed to congratulate them. If anything, it had quickened, as if life waited for them to make their vows before throwing open new doors. The door chimed behind her, and she turned just as Kieran stepped inside, brushing droplets from his coat. He spotted her at the back table and crossed the room with that easy stride that still made something in her chest settle. You made it, she said softly as he sat across from her. I would have come sooner, but Daisy insisted I help her design a super official family crest for the fridge. Kaia laughed quietly. Let me guess. Glitter? Not just glitter. Sequins. And a phone sword glued to the corner. I can't tell if we're raising a princess or a knight. Both, he said, reaching across to squeeze her hand. So, what's this about? She glanced down, then back up. I got another offer. His brow lifted slightly. From who? An international education initiative. Based in Geneva. They want me to consult on building a global literacy fund. It's a 6-month commitment. He didn't speak right away. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, studying her. Do you want to take it? Yes, she said, then quickly added, but I don't want to leave you two behind. Kieran tilted his head. Then don't. She blinked. What?
Take the job.
We'll all go. Kieran, it's Switzerland. That's not a weekend road trip. I know exactly what it is. And Daisy's school has remote options.
She's 5.
Her biggest concern is whether her teddy bear gets its own seat on the plane. Kaia stared, her heart thudding. You do that? Uproot everything? He smiled, not because it was charming, but because it was real. You said you wanted to build something with me. With us. That means building it wherever life takes us. She exhaled, the tension in her shoulders dissolving like steam. I didn't expect you to say yes. You didn't marry someone afraid of change, Kaia. You married someone who believes in you. And more importantly, in us. They sat in silence for a moment, the kind of silence that wasn't empty, but full of shared understanding. Then Kaia pulled a folder from her bag and slid it across the table. What's this? Details of the offer, plus the property I found in Geneva. It's small, but it has a garden. I thought Daisy might like that. Kieran opened the folder, flipping through the pages, then paused. You already said yes, didn't you? I said I needed to talk to my family first, she said. I just didn't say how ready I was to fight for it. He closed the folder and leaned forward. Let's do it. A week later, they packed their lives into what fit in 4 suitcases and 2 carry-ons, one of which was entirely filled with Daisy's art supplies. The flight was long, but Daisy slept with her head on Kaia's lap, and Kieran read aloud from a novel she'd picked at the airport bookstore. Their new home was tucked between old stone buildings and tree-lined streets, the kind of place where flower boxes bloomed on windowsills and church bells chimed every morning. It wasn't extravagant, but it was theirs. The move marked more than a change of location. It was a declaration. Kaia spent her days working with educational leaders from all over the world, traveling to rural schools and drafting policies that would impact thousands. But every evening, she came home to the sound of Daisy laughing in the garden, to Kieran cooking dinner while half listening to a podcast and flipping pancakes with alarming flair. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in rose and lavender, Kaia stepped outside to find Kieran sitting on the back steps, his sleeves rolled up, a glass of wine in one hand and a book in the other. She sat beside him, tucking her feet beneath her. Do you ever miss New York? Sometimes, he said. But I never miss who I was before you. She looked at him, heart full. You've changed, ever healed. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Me too. 3 months into their new life, Kaia received a call from the board at Jensen Holdings. They wanted her to return sooner than planned. Profits had dipped, and the new interim CEO wasn't handling the transition well. She hung up the phone and sat in the quiet office, sunlight filtering through the lace curtains. The papers on her desk blurred as her thoughts spun. She found Kieran in the kitchen, helping Daisy arrange cheese slices into the shape of a cat's face. I need to go back for a few weeks, she said gently. He glanced up, then nodded. We'll come with you. I don't want to disrupt things. You won't. You're not disrupting. You're leading. And we'll follow. The decision was made before she could second-guess it. They returned to New York for 3 weeks, staying in a modest brownstone Kaia had purchased years ago, but never lived in. She stepped into the boardroom with a clarity and confidence she hadn't felt when she'd first taken over the company in her 20s. This time, she didn't do it alone. Kieran dropped Daisy off at the same community center each morning, where she played and painted and told everyone who'd listen that her mom was changing the world. Kaia met with the board, restructured leadership, and appointed a new co-CEO, someone she trusted, someone who believed in the same values she did. Then she stepped back again. This time, on her own terms. On their last night in New York, they held a small dinner at the community center. Daisy wore a crown made of fall leaves. Kieran grilled vegetables out back with the other volunteers. Kaia stood beside the new director, watching the children run across the courtyard. You've done something special here, the director said. Kaia nodded.
We all have.
As the sun dipped below the skyline, Kieran came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Daisy ran past them, shrieking with glee, a trail of glitter following her. "I love you," he said into her ear. She turned, her hand resting on his chest. "You're my home, Kieran." They flew back to Geneva the next morning. Years passed. They traveled often, sometimes for Kaia's work, sometimes just to explore. Daisy grew into a curious, confident girl with a laugh that could break clouds apart. She spoke 3 languages by the time she was 9, and insisted on adding a 4th because why not? Kaia published a book on global education reform, dedicating it to the 2 people who taught me the meaning of building something that lasts. Kieran opened a youth outreach program in Geneva, modeled after the community center where they met. He never stopped creating, whether it was murals with local teens or planting vegetables in the garden with Daisy. Their love didn't burn out or fade. It deepened, threaded with shared mornings, school recitals, late-night talks on balconies overlooking cities neither of them had expected to call home. It wasn't flashy or loud. It was steady, enduring. One summer evening, years after that first chaotic airport meeting, Kaia and Kieran sat by a lake in the Swiss countryside. Daisy was off catching frogs with a friend nearby. The water shimmered gold beneath the setting sun. Kaia leaned into him, her gaze soft. "You know what I realized today? I never really believed in forever before you." Kieran kissed the top of her head. "And now I think forever might not be long enough." He didn't answer. He just held her tighter. And they sat there, together, exactly where they were always meant to be.